All right, we got one more question from my audience. Let me know your thoughts on this.
Are you able to date someone with kids?
As a woman or a man?
I think she's asking from the lens of a woman, like meaning that like if you, and specifically let's talk about your scenario, right? Or your past scenarios where you're dating these affluent men who are a lot older than you or older women, right? I imagine some of them have kids. Okay.
So not that the younger person has children, that the older person has children.
Let's talk with about the older person having children. So someone in your scenario being in the lifestyle of sugar babies and sugar daddies or sugar mamas are often a lot older and they come with kids. And if you're younger, you're potentially the same age as their children.
Yeah. It's the hottest thing for one of my older partners to like look over me at me and be like,
what do you mean the hottest thing? To me, I don't know how I feel about that.
You know, they look at me and they're like, you could be my daughter. And I'm like, let's fuck.
What? That's a turn on for you?
Like when someone thinks I'm young enough to be their kid. I love calling people like I love like the mommy daddy. Yeah.
What?
I'm into that. How do you not know that after this conversation, Jeff?
No. Okay, so here's the deal.
I get kinky.
I know that you're into the older masculine and younger feminine dynamic to an extreme level compared to the average person. But there's a difference between being into that and then it just being that, but then specifically referencing that you are young enough to be someone's daughter while you're standing next to their daughter. You know what I mean? Imagine the daughter's like, what is happening right now?
While we're in bed.
Huh?
Not next to the daughter, like while we're in bed.
Okay, so what has it been like meeting an older gentleman or older woman's child when you're in a relationship with them?
So both people that I've talked to that are, okay, let's start with Robert. Robert had no children. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Yes. Ex-girlfriend was 51, had a son in college, never met him, and has a daughter in college, met her. And we really vibed. We were singing Taylor Swift in the car, bobbing out, and eventually I got to her. She looked at me and she was like, there's something off. Like, I don't know if I can vibe with this because you're too connected to my daughter. Even your political views are too liberal. You're too young because you're connecting with my daughter. And that was hard for me to process because I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Act like I'm too good to talk to your daughter? Yeah. It was rough. I've also been with the 62-year-old lady. Like, we weren't in a real relationship, but I was hanging out at her house and her daughter-in-law came over who also at the time did my Botox. So she's like, what are you doing at my mom's house? And her mom was like, oh, Sophia and I play music together. I play the harp.
Is that how you met her?
They're gonna know. No, I met her because she was my neighbor.
Oh, and then...
Yeah, she was like 10 houses down from me.
But you mentioned something about the guy who was concerned that you had the same political views as his younger daughter. And... Right. He didn't like how that dynamic was playing out. I think
it was the woman. Yeah.
Oh, it was a woman.
Yeah.
Right. So
Robert's pretty progressive, so that we're good there.
Yeah, but if you really think about it, I think a man who's looking for a very young woman, right, and is willing to pay for it in whatever capacity, might like the idea, at least on the surface level. But then when real life problems come across, they might run into challenges that they weren't ready for. Like they might want someone who's a little bit more mature. I'm not saying you in particular, but there are a lot of really young women who are 18, 20, 21 who are getting paid by older gentlemen to spend time with. And then here's how I imagine it, right? Someone like myself, right? If I make a decent amount of money, I do okay, right? But if I've dated women. Like there was a time, the youngest woman I've ever dated, she was 23 and I was 32. Right?
Okay.
even in that gap, right? There were instances where like I bring her around like colleagues, friends, or family, and I'm just like, there's a lack of maturity here, right? Even though I knew that up front, I had never experienced it first to know what to expect. But once I got to experience it, I was like, yeah, this is a gap. This is an issue that might play out in the long run, poorly. Now, granted, there are younger women who are mature and there are older women who are immature, but in the likelihood, that's where it's going to fall with younger women, right?
But I'll tell you this. If we're talking about men, most older men who are in these situations and single at that age are immature. So it kind of evens out in the wash, okay? It evens out in the wash. But I will tell you, every situation I'm in, I'm an older soul. Everyone says that. It's very natural for me to communicate with older people. I've always had friends who are older. So one of the older guys I dated, he said, I love that I can take you to all my business meetings and events. And
yeah, that's a great thing. That's a great thing.
Yeah, but not everyone will be like that, like you said. And there's also this interesting dynamic of progressive views. Younger people have different views when it comes to politics or religion. And that can be an issue too. It really can. There's a lot to think about. There's differences.